Single dad receives a call from a homeless girl saying his son is unconscious after being hit by a car. When he gets there, he finds no one. Then at the end of the street, he sees someone coming and discovers something terrible. Comment giving a rating from 0 to 10 to my story. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I count on your help. The phone rang just as Mark, a 30-something accountant, was reviewing the last financial reports of the day. His skilled hands paused over the numbers, and something in the insistent tone of the ring made his heart race. Working at a mid-sized firm in the Big Apple had taught him to distinguish routine calls from emergencies, but this one had something different. The voice that emerged from the receiver was small, fragile, almost a whisper laden with despair. A little girl, sounding no more than 2 years old from the extreme delicacy of her words, was crying on the other end of the line. The words came tumbling out, punctuated by sobs that would break any parent's heart. "Your son is hurt, really hurt in Central Park. He won't wake up." His world crumbled. The handsome accountant, with looks reminiscent of those soap opera heartthrobs his late wife used to watch, felt his blood run cold. His 4-year-old boy should be safe at daycare, but something terrible had happened. The child on the phone kept crying, her words growing more desperate. "Please, come quick, he needs you, there's so much blood." Without a second thought, he dropped everything. The reports were scattered across the desk, the computer remained on, the chair spun empty as his footsteps echoed through the company hallway. Colleagues tried to ask what was going on, but he had already disappeared, rushing down the stairs like a man possessed by the deepest panic he had ever felt. The city traffic had never seemed so cruel. Each red light was an eternity, each honk a reminder that his son could be suffering while he remained stuck in urban chaos. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and all he could think about was the desperate little voice that had called him. He arrived at Central Park with his heart pounding so hard he felt the throbbing in his ears. He jumped out of the car while it was still moving, leaving it poorly parked as his eyes frantically scanned every corner of the place. People were walking normally, children were playing on the swings, seniors were feeding pigeons on the benches. Everything was absurdly normal. Where was his son? Where was the accident? Where was all the blood the girl had mentioned? He walked in circles, asking everyone he encountered. No one had seen any accident. No ambulance had passed by. No child had been hurt. Despair turned into confusion, then into an even deeper anguish. What was happening? Where was his boy? It was then that he called home again, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial. The babysitter's voice on the other end partially reassured him. His son was fine, playing in his room, had arrived from daycare a short time ago. No accident had occurred. But then, who was that little girl? Why had she called? And why did she know his phone number? The sun was beginning to set when he finally stopped looking for signs of an accident that had never happened. He was walking down the empty street near the park when an elegant figure emerged at the end of the sidewalk. It was a woman in her 30s, extremely beautiful, with perfectly styled hair and clothes that clearly cost more than his monthly salary. She approached with hesitant steps, and he could see tears streaming down her flawlessly made-up face. There was something about her that radiated wealth, from the gold watch on her wrist to the leather handbag she carried with the nonchalance of someone who had always had access to the best that money could buy. Did you receive a call today?" she asked, her voice choked but still retaining a certain natural elegance. "A call from a little girl?" The accountant felt the world spin again. "How do you know about that?" The woman closed her eyes and took a deep breath, as if preparing for a painful confession. Because she's my daughter, and she ran away from home again." The words came out like a torrent of repressed pain. The millionaire businesswoman, heiress to a financial empire built over decades, explained that her 4-year-old daughter, so fragile she seemed to be only 2, had developed the disturbing habit of running away from home and inventing elaborate stories to get attention from kind strangers. "She feels abandoned," the woman admitted, her voice breaking. "I work so much, spend so much time immersed in business, that she started doing this so I would stop and look at her." The accountant watched that sophisticated woman crumble before him. Behind all that elegance and wealth, there was a desperate mother facing the same anguish he knew well, the fear of not being enough for her child. "Where is she now?" he asked, feeling an inexplicable compassion growing in his chest. "I don't know," she whispered. "She ran away 3 days ago. This is the 3rd time this month. I don't know what to do anymore." The cold night wind began to blow between them, and the accountant saw in her eyes the same despair he had felt hours before. 2 completely different people from opposite worlds, united by the pain of being a parent in a relentless city that seemed to swallow their children. "I'll help you look for her," he said, surprising himself. "No child should be alone on the streets at night." She looked at him in surprise, as if she couldn't believe that a stranger would offer to help someone like her. But there was something in his eyes that made her nod, accepting the help of that simple man she had just met. They didn't know yet that that desperate call from a lost girl would be the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. As they prepared to walk the dangerous streets of the city in search of a frightened child, something much deeper began to form between them, a connection that transcended all the social and financial differences that separated them. The next few days turned into an agonizing routine of searching. The accountant abandoned his organized life to join that millionaire woman on a journey through the city's darkest streets. They walked together through forgotten alleys, asked homeless people, searched every corner where a frightened child could hide. During these endless walks, intimate conversations began to flow between them. She told about her life of luxury that had become a gilded cage. She had inherited the financial empire from her father at 25, accumulating a fortune through investments in stock market shares that few dared to make. Her wealth in dollars grew exponentially each month, but the emptiness in her heart increased in the same proportion. "When my daughter was born," she whispered as they watched a group of abandoned children sleeping under a marquee, "I thought I would finally have someone who would love me for who I am, not for what I own. But her father abandoned me 3 months after the birth. He said he couldn't compete with my obsession with work." The accountant listened to her in silence, recognizing a familiar pain. His own memories haunted him. His wife had passed away during childbirth, leaving him alone with a baby and a nearly empty bank account. While she accumulated wealth, he accumulated debt trying to raise his boy with dignity. "I've been working as an accountant for 8 years, he confessed one dawn, when they stopped to rest on a park bench. "I earn enough to pay the bills and give my son a simple life. I never dreamed of having a lot of money, just enough so that he wouldn't go through the hardship I went through as a child." The differences between them were glaring, but the pain of raising a child alone united them in an inexplicable way. She discovered that he had been preparing his own meals since he was 15, sewing his son's torn clothes, saving every penny to buy school supplies. He discovered that she had never cooked a meal, that she had servants for every household chore, that she spent on a dinner what he earned in a month. On the 3rd day of searching, they found a clue. A woman who sold flowers on a corner said she had seen a very small girl, too thin for her age, begging for food near the municipal market. They rushed there, but she had disappeared again. "She's smart," murmured the millionaire mother, a mixture of pride and despair in her voice. "She's always been like that since she was little. When she wants something, she creates elaborate strategies. I thought it was precocious intelligence, but now I realize it was neediness." During these conversations, the accountant began to notice details that intrigued him. The woman spoke about her daughter with genuine love, but there was something strange in the way she described certain situations. Small inconsistencies that he, with his analytical mind of someone who worked with numbers, couldn't ignore. On the fifth night, she invited him to dinner at her mansion. He was intimidated by the grandeur of the place: crystal chandeliers, imported furniture, works of art that were worth more than his entire house. But what impressed him most was the girl's room, filled with expensive toys that seemed never to have been touched, like a museum of an unlived childhood. "I gave her everything money could buy," she admitted, watching the untouched toys, "but I never gave her what she really wanted, my presence." They sat in the luxurious living room, and for the first time, the accountant saw beyond the facade of a successful businesswoman. He saw a broken woman who had traded love for profit and was now paying the highest possible price: the rejection of her own daughter. "Have you ever thought about slowing down the pace of work?" he asked, genuinely concerned. She laughed bitterly. "My partners would never understand. We have investments in international funds, applications that yield millions monthly. If I loosen control for a second, I can lose everything I've built. But what's the point of having everything if you don't have the most important person?" The question echoed in the silence of the mansion. For the first time in years, the businesswoman questioned whether all those financial applications, all those dividends and compound interest were worth the loneliness she felt. On the sixth night, something changed between them. During a break in the search, she tripped on a broken sidewalk, and he held her by the shoulders to prevent her from falling. For a few seconds, they were very close, their eyes met, and an electric current passed between them. She smelled his simple perfume. He noticed the vulnerability behind all that sophistication. They quickly pulled away, embarrassed. Both knew that something was growing there, something that went beyond the search for a lost child. But they also knew that they belonged to completely different worlds. It was then that they received the call that would change everything. A security guard at a shopping mall had found a little girl, extremely thin, hidden in the women's restroom. She was feverish and malnourished, but conscious, and she had given the millionaire mother's name when they asked who they could call. They rushed to the location like two desperate parents. When they arrived, they found the girl lying on an improvised stretcher, her big, frightened eyes searching for familiar faces. The millionaire mother threw herself beside her, tears streaming down uncontrollably. "My daughter, my love, you're okay." But something in the child's reaction intrigued him. She looked at the woman with affection, yes, but also with an expression he couldn't decipher, as if she was playing a role she had memorized perfectly. "I just wanted you to stay with me," whispered the girl, her voice weak but filled with a disturbing maturity for someone so small. "I just wanted to have a real family." The accountant watched the scene and felt that there were layers to that story he didn't yet understand. The girl was extraordinarily intelligent for her age, her words were carefully chosen, and there was something in her behavior that didn't perfectly fit the profile of a rejected daughter. But his thoughts were interrupted when the millionaire mother turned to him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked. "Without you, I would never have found her. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay anything," he replied, feeling a deep connection with that woman he had learned to love in such a short time. "Just take good care of her." But deep in his mind, a question tormented him. If that girl was as intelligent and manipulative as she seemed, what else was she hiding? And why did he have the feeling that the real twist of this story was yet to come? The girl's recovery brought a radical change in the millionaire businesswoman's life. For the first time in years, she cancelled important meetings, postponed business trips, and drastically reduced her work hours. She spent hours by her daughter's bedside, watching every breath, every movement, as if she feared she would disappear again. The accountant began to visit them daily, bringing his own son to keep the girl company during her recovery. The children understood each other immediately, playing together with a naturalness that surprised the adults. He noticed how his 4-year-old boy cared for the girl with paternal tenderness, sharing his toys and inventing stories to distract her. During these visits, the tension between the man and the woman grew each day. Small gestures became moments charged with meaning, when their hands touched when reaching for the same object, when she watched him playing with the children, when he caught her looking out the window with a melancholy expression. It was during one of those afternoons that the girl made a confession that left them perplexed. While playing family with dolls, she said casually, "I called several daddies until I found one who would come get me. You were the only ones who showed up." The silence that followed was deafening. The millionaire mother stopped breathing for a few seconds, and the accountant felt his blood run cold. "What do you mean, my love?" asked the woman, trying to keep her voice calm. "I picked up the phone and kept calling numbers until someone answered. I told the story of the hurt boy to see if anyone would come get me. But only you came." The child spoke with the terrifying simplicity of someone who doesn't understand the gravity of her actions. The revelation hit the businesswoman like a punch in the stomach. Her daughter had manipulated dozens of people, created situations of panic in entire families, all because she felt abandoned. Guilt consumed her completely. She was responsible for turning her own daughter into a child capable of such emotional manipulation. That night, after the children were asleep, they had the most intense conversation of their lives. Sitting on the mansion's porch, under a starry sky that contrasted with the urban chaos below, she completely broke down. "I destroyed my own daughter," she sobbed, her tears smudging her flawless makeup. "I turned a child into a liar because I didn't know how to be a mother." The accountant approached, his paternal instinct speaking louder than any social barrier. "You didn't destroy her. She's an intelligent child who found a desperate way to get attention. That can be corrected." "How?" she asked, vulnerable as she had never allowed herself to be. "How do I correct years of neglect? By being present, really present, not just physically but emotionally." He spoke about his own experience raising a child alone, about the sleepless nights when the boy was sick, about the fears and insecurities that every parent faces. She listened to him fascinated, realizing that there was much more wisdom in that simple man than in all the expensive consultants she had hired over the years. "My partners are furious with me," she admitted. "Yesterday they received a purchase proposal from our main competitor, a tempting offer that could multiply our profits, but that requires immediate decisions. They say I'm missing opportunities because of my maternal outbursts. And what are you going to do?" She looked at him, her eyes reflecting a determination he had never seen before. "I'm going to choose my daughter. For the first time in my life, I'm going to choose what really matters." The decision came at a high cost. The following week, her partners met and voted to remove her from the presidency of the company. They claimed she had become emotionally unstable and incapable of making rational decisions. In a matter of days, she lost control of the entire empire she had built. The financial downfall was devastating. Without access to the company's funds, she discovered that she had few personal reserves. All her assets were tied to the business. In a few weeks, she had to sell the mansion to pay off debts and move with her daughter to a simple apartment in the same humble neighborhood where the accountant lived. The physical proximity intensified everything between them. He taught her small, everyday tasks that she had never needed to learn: how to use public transportation, shop at local markets, cook simple meals. She, in turn, helped him with complex work spreadsheets, organized his finances with the efficiency of someone who had managed millions. The children loved the new routine. They spent the afternoons playing together, had meals as a family, and constantly asked when their parents were going to get married. The innocent questions created embarrassing moments, but also revealed how they all longed for that feeling of a complete family. One night, while preparing dinner together, she cut her finger with a knife. He rushed to help her, held her hand gently while washing the wound. For a few minutes they were very close, him taking care of her with a tenderness that made her heart race. When their eyes met, the desire they had been repressing almost consumed them. "I shouldn't feel this," she whispered, her voice choked. "Feel what?" he asked, although he knew exactly what she was talking about. "This that I feel for you. We are very different. I've already lost everything once for making emotional decisions. Maybe you lost things that weren't worth having," he replied, still holding her hand. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of the children, who ran into the kitchen running and shouting about some game. They quickly pulled away, but something had definitely changed between them. That same week, she received a call that changed everything again. A group of international investors had made a proposal to hire her as a financial consultant in a distant city. The salary offered was enough to rebuild her financial life, but it meant leaving behind everything she had learned to value. "It's a unique opportunity," she explained to him in a tense conversation. "I could recover my financial stability in just a few years. And your daughter? She would come with me, of course. It would be a fresh start for both of us." But in the following weeks, she realized how rooted the girl had become in that simple life. The child constantly talked about her little brother, as she called the accountant's son, and asked if they could all live together forever. The decision tormented her. On one side, the financial security that had always been her priority. On the other, an unconventional family that had formed organically, based on genuine affection and not convenience. It was then that the girl fell ill again. A high fever that left her delirious for 2 days, saying disjointed things that chilled the blood of both adults. Among the feverish ramblings, she repeated strange phrases about choosing the right mommy and finding the perfect daddy. When the fever finally subsided, she looked at the 2 adults who were caring for her with affection and said something that would change their lives forever. "I need to tell you the truth about who I really am." The girl's words echoed in the silence of the room, like a bomb about to explode. The accountant and the businesswoman exchanged glances, sensing that they were about to discover something that would change everything they thought they knew about that child and about themselves. "What do you mean, honey?" asked the woman, her voice trembling slightly. The girl took a deep breath, as if preparing for a confession she had kept for months. "I'm not your real daughter. I ran away from the orphanage and chose you to be my mum because you seemed very sad and lonely, just like me." The world crumbled. The businesswoman felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. All the memories she believed she had with that child, all the moments of maternal guilt, all the transformation she had gone through, all had been based on a lie concocted by an orphan desperate for a family. How did you do this?" she stammered, trying to process the revelation. "I was watching you for weeks," the girl explained, with the disturbing naturalness of a child who had planned every detail. "You always came out of that big building alone. You always cried in the car. I asked a lady on the street who you were, and she said you were very rich but very lonely. Then I decided you would be my mom." The accountant watched the scene in total shock. The child had created a fantasy so elaborate that she had managed to deceive everyone for months. But what impressed him most was the businesswoman's expression. There was no anger in her eyes, only a deep pain mixed with something that seemed to be relief. "Aren't you mad at me?" asked the girl, her big eyes filled with fear. To the accountant's surprise, the woman knelt beside the bed and hugged the child with a tenderness that seemed to have grown even more after the revelation. "No, honey, I'm just sad that you went through so much suffering that you needed to invent a family." Tears streamed freely down the businesswoman's face as she finally understood the magnitude of what had happened. A 4-year-old orphan, so desperate for love that she had created an elaborate plan to win a mother, and in the process had transformed the lives of 2 people who didn't even know they needed each other. "I really love you now," whispered the girl. "And I love him too." "Can you be my family anyway?" The question completely broke the accountant's heart. That child had found a unique way to create the family she had always dreamed of, and in the process had united two lonely people who were destined to meet. "Of course we can," replied the businesswoman, her voice choked. "If you want, I will adopt you officially. You will be my real daughter forever." The accountant felt his own heart expand in a way he had never experienced. Looking at that courageous woman caring for a child who had chosen to love her, he realized that he had fallen completely in love with both of them. In the weeks that followed the revelation, something magical happened. Free from the weight of maternal guilt, the businesswoman blossomed in a way that surprised everyone. She initiated the process of adopting the girl with fierce determination, navigating the bureaucracy with the same efficiency she had used to build her financial empire. In parallel, her closeness with the accountant evolved into something inevitable. There were no more emotional barriers between them. The truth about the girl had eliminated all the lies and created a solid foundation of mutual trust. One night, after the children were asleep, they finally talked about their feelings. Sitting on the small balcony of the simple apartment, watching the lights of the city, she took his hand and said, "I turned down the job offer in another city. Why? Because I discovered that there is something more valuable than all the money in the world. I discovered that a real family is not something you build with capital or investments, but with love and presence." He moved closer, his eyes shining with an emotion he could no longer hide. "And what do you want to do now?" "I want to rebuild my life here. I want to open a small financial consulting office, something that allows me to work flexible hours. I want to be present for my daughter and—" She hesitated, blushing slightly. "I want to find out what can happen between us." The kiss that followed was inevitable, charged with months of repressed tension and the certainty that they had found something rare and true. When they separated, both knew there was no turning back. They were completely surrendered to that love that had been born in the most unlikely way possible. In the following months, they built a new life together. She opened her financial consulting practice, serving small investors and teaching financial literacy to low-income people, discovering a professional satisfaction she had never felt accumulating millions for the wealthy. He was promoted at the company after she helped him present an innovative proposal to optimize accounting reports. For the first time, his talent was recognized and rewarded appropriately. The children adapted to the new family with impressive naturalness. The girl, now officially adopted, flourished in an environment where she received unconditional love without needing to manipulate or lie. The accountant's boy proved to be a protective and caring older brother. 6 months after the first desperate call, they were married in a simple ceremony, surrounded only by the children and a few close friends. At the improvised altar in the park where it had all begun, she looked at the man she had learned to love and realized how her definition of wealth had completely changed. "You know," she whispered during the exchange of vows, "I always thought my greatest achievement had been accumulating a fortune in stocks and investments. But I discovered that my true wealth is here, in this family we built together." The accountant smiled, holding her hands with the tenderness he had developed since the first day he saw her crying in the street. "And I discovered that a man can be a millionaire without having a penny, as long as he has the right people by his side." The girl, radiant in her flower girl dress, shouted from the audience, "Now we are a real family forever." The laughter that echoed through the park sealed not only a marriage, but the end of a journey that had begun with an innocent lie and turned into the most beautiful truth any of them could have imagined. Years later, when they told their story to others, they always mentioned how a desperate phone call from a lost child had become the common thread that united two lonely souls. The businesswoman never recovered her old fortune, but she discovered that there was something much more valuable than all the dividends and profits in the world: the unconditional love of a true family. And the girl, now grown and secure in the love that surrounded her, sometimes joked that she had been the best investor of all. With a single phone call, she had conquered exactly the family she had always dreamed of having. If you liked this wonderful story, please comment, giving a rating from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important. And if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.